Today, we're going to take a look at the Bianca Harris case, and I'll have a more full video on that in a little bit, but I wanted to talk a little bit about it first. Here's what we're talking about today. Several months ago, because I watch a lot of body cam videos, it always it always interests me to see how wrong people can be about what their rights are. I especially love the people who tell the cops, "You can't touch me." And in most cases, that's inaccurate. The cops can. If they're doing a lawful pat down, a lawful search, they can touch you. But they always get that wrong, and I just have to laugh. Some of them are really funny, although I would hate to have been the police officer trying to deal with some of those people. And this is one of those cases. But it's not funny, it's tragic. I will try to link the video that has sort of the synopsis of the case and how it got into court down below. It was from Court TV, and unfortunately, the full opening and full closing, they did not stream for whatever reason. And as a result, we don't have that. And as they often do, they pop in and out of openings and closing arguments and do other things, which, they're juggling a lot of different cases. Okay, I get that, but it's very frustrating if you want to analyze an entire opening or an entire closing. So, as I started to tell you, I always watch these body cam videos at night just for a chuckle, and on this one, it was not chuckle worthy. In fact, it was cringeworthy and very awful. The body cam starts with the police officers arriving outside of a supermarket where a woman has been stabbed, except it isn't just a woman, it is her infant or her toddler, and her toddler has also been stabbed and was ultimately killed as a result, which is terrible. And normally you would expect to see someone who is just out of their mind with rage when you see such a horrible crime, but instead, when they arrested this woman, she was giggling and laughing and smiling, and when she first came into court, she had a big old smile on her face. And that was just really hard for me to process. I couldn't believe that someone could be that evil, so I had to assume that maybe she was mentally ill. And it turns out that is exactly what was wrong with her. Now, I don't know whether she had schizophrenia and drug abuse or something else made it worse, or whether she had always had schizophrenia and it just took until the age of 22 to get it diagnosed. But she was diagnosed with schizophrenia at age 22, and they put her on medicine, and she was well controlled, according to the head shrinkers that did the evaluation of her. So she was on an outpatient regimen. She was seen periodically at this outpatient psychiatric place, and they made sure she had her medicines and that she was taking them until they didn't. And then, when they didn't, the issue was nobody knew where this woman had gone. And according to the opening statement by the defense in this case, she got a Social Security check because when you're schizophrenic, you usually don't make a very good employee. She got her disability check. She drove out to California. And it's worth noting that out in California, she got arrested for punching and assaulting nurses and other people who were trying to help her at a hospital. The cops found her sitting on the floor. They had to pick her up. She said, "Put me in handcuffs, take me to jail." She wanted to be in jail for at least 2 weeks. Apparently, that's what she told them. But California, as you probably know, is a no bail state, so it was just a revolving door, and she was right back out on the street. She drove out to California, back to Ohio. She drove down to Florida. She was arrested in Florida for trespass, and that was because she showed up at a hotel, wanted to rent a room, didn't have any money, and they wouldn't let her rent a room, but she also wouldn't leave, so they had to have her removed. As amazing as this is, she told the police there that she wanted to remain in jail for 2 weeks, apparently. And again, because it was simple trespass, they didn't even hold her 24 hours. So she jumped back in the car and drove back to Ohio. And her mom, who doesn't know where she is calling the psychiatric place, wanting to know if they'd seen her, was she on her meds, what's going on. Obviously, very distraught about her daughter having this issue. And in the meantime, she just goes completely bananas and has this episode where she effectively unalives one person and tragically wounds somebody else. And as I was listening to the opening statements, or what part of them court TV would show yesterday, I was struck by the fact that there was a defendant missing. And the defendant that's missing is the psychiatric hospital that allowed this woman to be out and didn't follow up. Now, I understand they have lots of patients, but when you have someone who has a serious case of schizophrenia and it's only controlled by medications and you don't know if she is actually taking her medications, it seems to me that the responsible thing to do is follow up. They apparently made no effort to find her. They weren't clinically curious about what was going on with her. Maybe they thought she'd moved to a different state and it was no longer their problem. Whatever it was, they basically abandoned their duty to essentially take care of this woman who had a terrible situation. So I want to talk for a moment about something called the Tarasoff Doctrine. It comes from a famous California case, Tarasoff versus Regents of the University of California. It's a 1976 case. It created what we now call a duty to warn or duty to protect with respect to identifiable persons with identifiable mental health problems that could harm others. In that situation, a college student named last name of Poddar, Poddar, was in therapy at the University of California, Berkeley. During sessions, he told his psychologist that he planned to kill a young woman named Tatiana Tarasoff. The therapist took him seriously and contacted campus police, who briefly detained Potter, but released him when he seemed calm. Now, no one ever warned Tatiana or her family about the threat. A few weeks later, Poddar carried out his plan and killed her. Well, Tatiana's parents were pretty upset, as you might imagine, as I'm sure are the parents in the Harris case. Tatiana's parents sued the university, arguing that the therapist and university officials should have warned their daughter or taken stronger steps to protect her. Well, here's what the California Supreme Court decided. They agreed with the Tarasoff family, holding that when a mental health professional knows or should know that a patient poses a serious danger to a person, the therapist has a duty to take reasonable steps to protect that person. That duty overrides patient confidentiality in certain cases. Normally, what a person tells a therapist is private. But when someone's life or safety is in immediate danger, that privacy can give way to the therapist's responsibility to protect potential victims. So, what does reasonable steps really mean? The court didn't say, but there's always a duty to warn directly if a specific person is identified. When you're just talking about someone who's going to randomly stab people in a parking lot, in a grocery store parking lot, then there's not a specific duty to warn those individuals. But a reasonable precaution might very well be to notify law enforcement, provide identification of the individual, warn about the potential activity, the fact that the individual is schizophrenic. My guess is if you go through the notes with this particular person, you're going to find that she had fantasies about being violent, and if necessary, you're supposed to hospitalize the patient. And if after she had gone off the reservation so quickly and not come back, they had not taken steps to find her, it seems to me that at the very least, if she was able to be located, they should have hospitalized her. Now, the exact duty varies by state law, and I don't know what Ohio's duty is in this case, but you can expect it to be something similar, if not exactly the same, as the Tarasoff doctrine in California. California does tend to be more liberal, Ohio tends to be more conservative, so they may require a specific threat against a specific person to apply this. That I don't know. Like I said, it seemed to me that there was a defendant missing. The reason this matters is because while there is supposed to be confidentiality in therapy, if I go to my therapist and tell him that I really think that I'm the reincarnation of Louis the 16th, and I honestly believe that, I'm not really a danger to anybody else. Or, if my wife tells him that she thinks she's Marie Antoinette, I guess we just hide the cake mixes. But public safety is important, and there has to be a balancing of interests. And that's what the doctrine is about. It's about balancing these interests between the harm that can be caused by someone who is mentally ill and the confidentiality of protecting that person's interest in keeping their particular disease or mental condition secret or confidential. So I'm interested in what you think about this particular case. It's a horrible case. I'm going to take some of the testimony and some of the cross examination today and look at that. And hopefully, we can have a better understanding of exactly what went on. But I'm interested in what you think about the kinds of, like the Tarasoff doctrine, whether or not, certainly, if for no other reason, I think the institution ought to be sued and the physician ought to be sued by the parents of this particular child. Even if they don't win, it's worth going after them to at least try to establish some accountability for not following up with a patient. If somebody comes in to I guess to maybe a doc in the box, a short place for people to get treated for cuts and bruises and sniffly noses, and says, I've been having this really aching feeling in my chest for weeks now, and I just don't know what to do. And if they hand him some aspirin, antibiotics to help him get over what they think is pneumonia, even though there's no pneumonia showing on an x ray, and a day later he drops dead from a massive heart attack, well, there's a pretty clear case of medical negligence there. And it seems to me that there's no difference here, that except the medical negligence isn't for the patient so much as for the community, because obviously this woman did not get harmed in what she did. And when the police approached her, she calmly laid down, put her hands behind her back, and that was all there was to it. So I'm going to link down below the link to the Court TV synopsis of this case, and I'd really be interested in your thoughts. Thanks for watching. I appreciate you being here today. If you have the opportunity today, try to do one kind thing to help somebody else. Any kind thing will do. Buy somebody a Coke, get them a cup of coffee, anything that makes their day better. That would be a way to help make the world a better place. Because after all, isn't that what we're all after? Now, YouTube has a few things that they think you might be interested in, and they're going to be showing you that right up there.